Hello. Okay, this is the one that, yeah, this is the right one. All right, so we'll call everybody in for the strategic plan presentation. You got everybody there, Mac? Yep? All right. Very good. Well, this first slide says draft, but it's actually been approved by the council. It will be coming to the congregation for a congregational vote at the annual meeting this year. And so I kind of still think, well, it's somewhat still a draft because it's not official by the congregation as of yet. But let me take this off. Starting off, I just wanted to give just a touch of background in that the strategic plan was updated in preparation for the call process for me to come to Ascension. And it was right after the first of the year, the current council met at a council retreat, and we went through and we updated the strategic plan for the upcoming year. We obviously had no idea what this year was going to look like. And we never would have guessed. We had been reading Canoeing the Mountains by Todd Bolsinger that talked about the world in front of us is nothing like the world behind us, but we had no clue how different the world in front of us was going to look from the world behind us. And so as we started talking over the summer, we decided this plan needs to be updated again in the confines of what we find ourselves with the pandemic and moving forward, and how have we adapted and changed. And on top of that, it was requested that Pastor Randy have his voice in this plan as well, since the original was done prior to my arrival. So as we start preparing for this, there were a couple of questions that I wanted to emphasize with the council, and that was, number one, we want to keep the main thing the main thing. Let's not become too focused on things that go out this way, tangents that go that direction. Always keep the main purpose the main thing. Secondly, with Bolsinger, the world in front of us is different from the world behind us. And so it is important that we recognize the core values of the church never change. The core values never change. The way those core values are done will always be adapting to the world around us. So travel is travel is travel. At one point in time, that travel was done by horse and buggy. And then it was done by train. Didn't change the fact it was still travel. And then it was done by car, continuously adapting. And then the third question, why are we here in the first place? Why are we doing this? And we want to make sure that we are always sticking to the why as the priority over the how we are doing things. The how will change, the why stays the same. So we started with our mission statement and our core values, and this is not showing up very well. But to basically let you know, our mission, all of you are probably familiar with it: to know, to grow, and to go in God's love. As we went through the strategic plan, there weren't a lot of major changes. And that mission statement did not change. But the vision statement adjusted just a little. So our vision statement says, Ascension will continue to thrive as a vibrant, team-driven congregation that grows discipleship by empowering people through sacrament, study, and service. One thing that was taken out of this vision statement was the word membership and the emphasis on membership. And here's the reason why. In the past, and when I say in the past, I'm talking over 20 years ago, everyone could safely assume that the large majority of people in the community had the basic understanding of God, of Jesus, and of the Holy Spirit based on what we understand in the Christian faith. Even if people weren't going to church, they probably went through Sunday school, or they may have gone through catechism. They had a basic understanding of who God and who Jesus and who the Holy Spirit was. That is no longer the case. I can't emphasize this enough. That assumption is gone. Today, a slight majority of people under the age of 40 have never had a connection to church. They've not gone through Sunday school. They've not gone through catechism. The parents who had stopped going to worship 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when their kids are being brought up, they're not sending their kids to Sunday school or to worship. And then those kids have kids, or younger ones today, they have even less understanding of the basics of faith. And so in the past, 20 plus years ago, with the assumption that everybody had at least a basic understanding of who God is, you could put on programs and you could do things to try to attract people to come to your worship experiences, to join in your outreach programs. All we were asking them to do is change their priority from the sports or the other types of events to a church experience. But today, if you're going to try to bring people into church, if they have no basic understanding of what church is about, why would they come? When it comes to youth, why would parents who have almost no connection to church want to send their kids when, for the parents, they have no interest in church? Why would their kids, or why would they even ask their kids to have an interest in church? The world is very different today than it was 40, 50 years ago. And so it changes the way we do things. And it's not so much, in my mind, about membership, getting people in to join the church. I am more interested in people participating in what we do and building an understanding of why we do what we do, so that when they see compassion and they see love coming from us into the greater community, those who have no understanding, basic understanding of Christian faith might look and say, hey, I like what they're doing. Hey, I'd like to participate in that. And they may not even come to worship on the weekends, but they may begin building trust in connecting with those of the church who are participating in sharing compassion and love outward. So the whole idea of church has changed from trying to attract people in to now having to go out and meet people where they are. And in fact, that's what Jesus and the disciples did in the original days. So the vision statement is less about how do we get people in here, in our doors, to how do we go out and engage people out where they are and start making relationships out where they are, to where at some point in time they might say, I'd like to go in and participate in that experience. Not just the outreach, but even the worship experience here in the sanctuary. What we have underneath that are the core values, basically, of Ascension. All are welcome. All are invited to walk together in community and celebration. That these three haven't changed. We are nurtured through worship. We gather to reflect, recharge, and renew in a Christ-centered community, and we respond in service. We serve others by living out our faith in service. All are welcome, we're nurtured through worship, and we respond in service. Those three cores continue moving forward. As I was looking at the original strategic plan, I started thinking about why we do what we do. And I came up with 4 pillars. And I used the visual of a temple. You have the floor, you have 4 corner pillars, and you have a roof. And that floor, that foundation, is God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That is the foundation of why we are a faith community. That is the foundation. The 4 pillars are why we as a faith community gather. And the roof is our mission statement: to know, grow, go in God's love. And those 4 pillars, though some of them have the same name as our ministries, they are not our ministries. Ministries connect with them. The 4 pillars: worship, education, connections, and generosity. So the first pillar, and there's no particular order, these 4 things are the core of why we are a faith community, connecting with God. First, let's talk about worship. Worship is more than this Sunday experience in a sanctuary. Worship happens all around us in many ways. When we are serving someone in need, it is an act of worship. When we are in prayer, we are worshiping. When working in the garden, when going out for a hike, whenever we are acknowledging God in that moment, it is an act of worship. And worship can happen in many different ways besides that. Even when it comes to our Sunday worship, it may be a Wednesday night or a Thursday night. It may be a Monday afternoon. It may be having a musical event outside. There may not be a sermon. It can still be worship. Worship happens in multiple ways, and we want to be able to engage people in the acts of worship and appreciate and show gratitude for God in all of these different ways. And so under worship, we talk about engaging participants and the faith stories are an awesome example of sharing worship. The faith stories now that we're doing for generosity, but we can share stories not only with our families, but also with our neighbors and with our friends to talk about how Jesus and how this faith life is important to us and why. Kind of connects with the 2 questions from the sermon today. Education. Education is another pillar that we looked at. When Jesus was ascending into heaven, we have the Great Commission: go out and baptize and make disciples. Disciples in Jesus' day were learning from rabbis. Their time was spent not just learning intellectually, but to spending time with the rabbis to get to practice traditions, to practice faith. Disciples, making disciples, is one of the most basic responsibilities of the church, is not just to teach people intellectually, but to help people grow and understand God in relationship and to connect with God in our daily activities in life. And so under education, we think it's really important that we have an opportunity for people who are interested in going that deep in their connection to have discipleship training opportunities. We also want to share opportunities for additional Bible studies and book studies. Moving forward, we're also looking to having community forums based here in Ascension when we have the ability to have larger crowds come in, and even maybe so during our limited capacity during the pandemic. We would like to bring in people who can speak on particular issues that are important and connected within our local community, to where people outside of Ascension's participants generally are invited in to be able to hear that and to recognize that Ascension is more than just taking a Bible and hitting you over the head. It is about, we care about you and we think it's important to talk about issues that we deal with on a daily basis. Youth ministry. When we look across the congregation, we don't have a whole lot of youth sitting in our pews at this time. And so, with the retirement of Judy Lenz, we are making some adjustments. I'm going to be teaching the catechism class, starting again here the 1st of December with the catechism kids that are here. We are going to be practicing that via Zoom, as well as in-person gatherings. We're going to find some other ways to also teach catechism besides just those two forums. But we are also going to have volunteers helping to teach youth. When youth come in for the worship service, I'm going to have a youth message available for that day. If I see that there are youth, to bring them forward and share that message with them. And then we'll have a volunteer that will help take them aside, and we'll have a little conversation with them about the message for the day and how that connects with them. They'll have some materials that they'll have available for learning that as well. And we are hoping that as we continue down the road with our expanded adult education programs, that we will be able to find ways to connect with younger families, with younger moms and dads, people who might be seeking this understanding of who Jesus is, who God is, that they may not have had a whole lot of background in before. And when we can start building trust with them, bring them in and start having conversations about faith or other types of groups, then I expect that down the road they're going to be bringing their kids in, and that we can have growth of a robust youth ministry once again. So education goes across the board. And then we go to connections. Connections is about relationship building. It's like our outreach and our social ministries. Whether it's finding ways to connect in-house with one another and finding additional ways to connect with our local community all around us, those are aspects of the faith that are so critical when it comes to the future of Ascension. It's not about us. The message is about us, that each and every one of us have been provided this grace from God. It is about the people who are not in the kingdom yet, who don't understand the kingdom yet, who don't recognize the kingdom yet. How do we help teach and expose that? And so with our connections, again, we're going to be looking at community forums that can get people in the door. We're going to be finding ways to connect with surrounding neighborhoods around Ascension. We have a lot of generosity. We do a lot of drives, and we give a lot of our resources to those who are hungry in downtown, to those who are homeless downtown, and those are good ministries. But how are we connecting with the people who live within blocks of the campus? Even though these people aren't homeless, even though these people might not need a meal, that doesn't mean that they don't need the gospel message. How many people are dealing with loneliness today in the midst of our pandemic? How many people may have shelves full of successes, and yet there's something that still feels like a void inside that they want a relationship with somebody for? I don't have all the answers on how that's going to work, but we want to brainstorm ideas in how we can start connecting with people who live all around us. And of course, during this pandemic, we have been forced thankfully, into expanding our footprint in the digital realm. And so part of our connections is to have a vibrant website and to have social media presence. And how do we adapt our website to engage people who are checking us out online? How do we format that website that is going to get people's interest? Because you may be familiar with the phrase church shopping, and there are maybe some who have experienced that. Today's church shopping, for the most part, happens online. You've got to have a website that people are going to look at and can easily maneuver to get their interest in showing up in person. The fourth pillar is generosity. We know a little bit about generosity. But generosity is so often focused on the financial. And while that is an important aspect, we need the finances to pay our bills. We need the finances to do ministry going outward. We need people to invest in the ministries of Ascension in order to expand our footprint. But folks, we need generosity in a whole lot of other ways too. We need generosity in your time to come participate in worship, to participate in outreach opportunities, to participate in education, to participate in building new relationships. And so you've heard this generosity theme that we've been on for the last couple of weeks and that we'll be talking about over the next couple of weeks. And really what it's doing is it's transforming our whole culture from the idea of bringing people in for membership to taking our generosity outward. And that I believe one of the results of an abundant ministry outward will be coming inward. Coming inward, more people coming in to go out. More people going out to bring people in. I think it's going to be a nice balance of relationship. And so what I hope that you will notice from these four pillars is not any one pillar is a silo unto itself. They all overlap. They're all interconnected. And the ministries, there isn't one pillar that doesn't affect multitudes of ministries. And one ministry is connected to all four pillars. It is an intertwined, relational, strategic plan. And one of the things that we have found in the past, you used to be able to plan for 10 years, 5 years forward. Well, we found out this year it's pretty hard to plan even 3 months ahead because we don't know exactly what's going to be happening as we move forward. So we put a plan in place, keeping the core values the same. All are welcome. We're nurtured through worship. We respond in service. We're building relationships. But we're also flexible enough to recognize that the way that we do it is going to have to adapt and change and be flexible when necessary. It's that change of the how we do things that can sometimes be uncomfortable. But I don't want anybody to get the how mixed up with the priority of why we're doing it in the first place. Yes, we may disagree on how we do some of the ministries that we do, but let's not ever make that a priority, that the how is somehow more important than why we're doing it in the first place. This is an overview of the four pillars and the strategic plan that we're taking forward. It's simplified a lot from the past strategic plan, but all of our ministries are being empowered by ministry leaders to be able to understand our umbrella understanding of the 4 pillars and the why we do what we do. They have a council representative at each of their meetings, helping to share with them any input from council or to take questions back to the council regarding what's being done. And so each ministry is being empowered to use their gifts, to use their talents in whatever way possible to help expand beyond Ascension and outward. It's not just about leadership from the pastor, from the staff, from the council. We are empowering the congregation to get involved in a ministry that speaks to them, that brings them life, and that they can use their gifts and talents in abundance. So with that, I would like to open up for any questions that you might have in regards to the plan moving forward. And in some of these, we don't have specifics just yet. They are still works in progress, but we at least have the direction that we're looking to go. Questions? Everybody's hungry? Daryl. So are there tools available for when we begin the ministries moving outward? Yes. So at this particular moment, we don't have anything specific in place to use as an outline for what we're going to do and how specifically it's going to happen. But when we do put those types of programs in place, we will have the plan given to everybody on how we do that. The first thing, and the most important, is personal invitations. You know, it seems so simple, but according to research, personal invitations have more than twice the effect of the next option in line, which is the pastor making a personal visit. And one of the things, when I was still in Oro Valley, and we had a new pastor come down to Oro Valley from Wisconsin, and he said, you know, I helped seed a new congregation in Madison, Wisconsin 15, 20 years ago. And he said, I was going door to door and dropping off brochures to people and inviting them, right? He says, but we never had gated communities back then. How do you do that with a gated community? And you can't get in. And we've got a lot of gated communities around the area. So that is when I'm asking the congregation, invite your friends. And it's not just about inviting somebody that's already going to church somewhere else. Come check out our church, because we're not in competition with one another as churches, as congregations. We're all on the same team. Might have some different beliefs, but we're all on the same team. So invite someone that you know isn't currently attending. And maybe, Daryl, maybe we'll have a time where we have an invitation Sunday, where we know in advance, this particular week, we're going to put an emphasis on people being invited to worship. Anyone else?
By having classes. I know you've all heard about our old encore that we had in previous years. We had small groups for all sorts of things, everything from music to sculpturing to Tai Chi to you name it. In-depth studies also on economics and everything. This is a big church. If we could get, say, even 5 classes going for a period of 2 months, these people are interested and they will come to church. So I think that's a great way to bring in people are through outside classes. And they don't necessarily have to be all religious classes, but they will know that this is a religious place.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, our education committee is already looking at options for series types of options. I also am in favor of small group. In fact, we have someone who's opening up a small group for hiking here in the month of December. So people who are interested in hiking have the ability to have a small group. It is a way to be able to connect with people from outside of the congregation, to build relationships. And small groups of all types. It doesn't even have to be faith-based as the center of it, right? But yes, I agree with that. The one thing that I would, I don't know if I would say challenge, but this is not a large church. The campus here is pretty big, but in regards to weekly attendance, participation, this is a medium-sized congregation, on the lower end of medium-sized congregation. So what we can do can help make a medium-sized congregation feel even bigger, especially if we can get series in place where people are engaged not just to come to one particular Bible study at a time, but to engage on a continual weekly type of basis. Anyone else? No. For those of you who are watching online, I would encourage you, if you have questions that weren't answered through this presentation or through the questions that were shared here, go ahead and either call in or send an email to be answered by me. And we will look at putting in a Zoom meeting in the next probably 2 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks, where we can do the same presentation via Zoom, and you have the opportunity to share your questions and seek answers as well. Thank you so much for being here today. We do have a couple of recordings that are going to be done immediately following this before we start the greening process of the sanctuary. But I'm guessing by 11:45, we will be ready to begin the decoration process. So thank you again for being here today. Thank you for all that you have done, for all that you already do in generosity with Ascension's ministries and outward. And I pray that you will continue to consider, to discern how you can also generously serve and help in new ways. God bless you all, and have a wonderful, blessed, and safe Thanksgiving this coming week. That ends the presentation.